Morning everyone. Firstly, I'd like to address the elephant in the room regarding what's going on in the world at the moment. I'm aware that right now I have a platform to speak about these atrocities that have been occurring not only in this day and age, but also the gross injustices that have been occurring for generations upon generations. In America and across the world, there is common outrage and protests against the problem of institutionalized racism against people of colour, in particular the black community in the culturally Western world. I'm sure many of you now will be aware of names like George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and the list unfortunately goes on and on. Furthermore, regarding the killings of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, remember these individuals were only in their 20s. These individuals, in the slightly altered words of John Boyega, who spoke so passionately at Hyde Park recently, were not even halfway through their process. They weren't much older than all of us at Kes. I'm sure that those of you who have watched the footage of the killings of Arbery and Floyd were all infuriated and deeply saddened by the injustice and horror that was occurring before our eyes. While people may have experienced a whole host of emotions while watching the footage, the emotion that I hope people didn't experience was that of surprise. And here's why. I say you shouldn't feel surprised because the continuous mistreatment of the black African community dates back 400 to 500 years ago to the age of European exploration and the establishment of the transatlantic slave trade in the 16th century. Current estimates approximate that 15 million African people were taken from their homes and shipped across the Atlantic over the course of 400 years. If I wanted to refer to more recent history, I can look to 1921 and the Tulsa Massacre, where one of the worst episodes of racial violence occurred in the US. White mobs rampaged through the Greenwood section of Tulsa, a very prosperous black neighborhood. Over 24 hours, 35 city blocks were destroyed, including churches, homes, schools, businesses, even a hospital, and an estimated 300 people were killed, with none of those committing these criminal acts being prosecuted. Today, racism still manifests in a number of different overt and covert ways. This is evident within our institutions and structures like education, the labour market, housing and the criminal justice system, and generally in the minds of individuals through unconscious bias. This is the sum of ingrained prejudices which everyone holds by virtue of growing up in this society. In no way am I trying to set myself apart from others, or am I trying to create even further divisions between certain social and racial classes. I want to do the opposite. This is an issue that can only be solved if we work and cooperate together. Not just the white race, or the black race, or even the Asian race, but the human race. There is honestly so much that I could say regarding this matter, but I want to focus on what we need to be doing as individuals and as a school community. We must fight for those and support those in the war against systemic racism that discriminates against the black community and oppresses those with darker pigmentations. For those that have not yet been properly exposed to matters regarding the Black Lives Matter movement and institutionalized racism, though it may feel slightly uncomfortable to engage with these sorts of topics, we have a duty as human beings to educate ourselves on their struggle. Learn about the complex societal and political levers that work and have been ingrained in our society to benefit white people at the expense of people of colour. Now, don't get me wrong, improvements have been made, but we are far from achieving actual equality in our society. Yes, in the UK we do not have laws which explicitly segregate or discriminate. However, the implementation or enforcement of these seemingly neutral laws involve a level of prosecutorial discretion, or wiggle room, which allows the conscious and unconscious biases of the agents of the criminal justice system to influence the outcomes. For example, stop and search laws are a key example of this. I want to also mention how while the oppression of the black community is what we are focusing on at the moment, and rightly so, this is in no way means that we are not and should not be aware of the oppression of other races around the world going on at the moment. I could refer to the Uyghur Muslims in China, Afghans in Iran, or the Rohingyas in Myanmar. Essentially, I'm saying how the gross oppression of racial groups does not only happen in the Western world, but is present worldwide, and the victims and perpetrators of suffering are not unique to any one group. I want to reiterate to any white individual listening to me now that has seen the outrage occurring at the moment across different types of media, to know that no one is saying you are automatically a racist or a bad person, or you don't work hard, or have never gone through unimaginable struggle or suffering of your own. Of course that isn't the case. Your actions, general conduct and life experiences are what determine that. However, one needs to be aware of one's white privilege, and it is undeniably a real thing. A simple definition of white privilege is that it refers to the implicit and/or systemic advantages that white people have relative to people of colour. It includes the absence of suspicion and other negative reactions that people who are objects of racism experience, and can consequently cover a broad range of instances. For example, white people will never struggle to find role models who look like themselves in the media. You won't get called a racial slur. You won't be asked the question, where are you from? No, where are you really from? If you need quantitative data from another example to help you understand, I can once again refer to the stop and search data. In the most recent statistics from the Home Office and the Ministry of Justice, in 2018 to 19, black people were more than 9 times more likely to be stopped and searched by the police than white people. Furthermore, they were more than 5 times more likely to have force used upon them by police, in comparison to white people. There could be many explanations for this, but it would be ignorant to simply dismiss the fact that differences in race lead to differences in treatment. Speaking to everyone now, in an issue like this, ignorance unfortunately prevents change. But luckily it is the case that we in our school community and as a general society have the ability and opportunity to educate ourselves. Furthermore, we should all continue being proactive in our efforts so that they may amount to something sustainable and of substance. And as I'm sure many of you would have seen on social media, we can sign petitions, email authority figures in influential positions so that we in turn can have influence. If you have the means, donate money and openly protest. Make our voices heard. Until the lives of those that are currently discriminated against matter, then not all lives really do matter. Regarding our school, Kes Birmingham, and what we're doing, I've spoken to Dr. Ricks along with the other prefects about the different ways in which we can address the issue of racism within our institution. Overall, we know what is required is increased, consistent and sustained education and discourse of racial and social issues on a range of different platforms that the school can provide. These platforms can range from assemblies just like this, societies and guest speakers, using Friday afternoon activities to implement compulsory workshops and talks, reforms to the subject curriculum, the implementation of courses for staff so they are better equipped and educated to deal with racism, and much more, some of which are already being addressed. Partly because the Kes community as a whole benefits from some form of privilege, whether it is male, education, cisgender, class, etc., and the fact we are such a multicultural school means we are in a position to properly engage with not only the issues and experiences of those that we hear on the news, but also our own. And it means we should see it as our personal duty to be active when we see such injustice. Combined with what I've already suggested and the many more initiatives that can and should be implemented, we would want the school community to overall foster a culture of self-regulation, thus encouraging the idea of personal culpability among the students and their friends groups. Because at the end of the day, we are the ones in control of our actions. This leads me on to my quote of the week, which pretty much sums up what I would like people to take from what I've said today. This was said by Angela Davis, an American political activist, and you may have heard this before, but these words need to be reiterated. In a racist society, it is not enough to be non-racist. We must be anti-racist. That's all from me, folks. I hope that you have a great day and enjoy the rest of your week.